choices?
Yeah. Jesus and sex. I kind of thought it would be funny, but I don't know that I'm even comfortable if we talked about real girl talk about like.
Oh.
How crucial is your relationship with God and prioritizing that within your marriage and just like helping that to thrive and like even just like y'all's communication and like I guess his relationship too, like how that's like a symbiotic thing.
I talked a little bit about how like I did things the right way, and then like when I started dating Andrew, I like flipped it on its head and I was like, nope, so I feel like during that time I fell away from God. Like, I really did. And there was a lot of bitterness in me where, I mean, obviously I still believed in God and I still, like, held those values very close.
Right.
But I was just hurting really bad and going through a lot of, you know.
That's fair.
What happened, you know, with me getting pregnant with the twins while being reckless in dating was really God being like, wake up. Like, there are consequences to your actions, and this is why I say what I say in my word.
That's really powerful.
And and a lot of me was like, well, I already have had sex. So, like, and the, you know, marriage didn't work out. So, like, what do I do now? Like, you know, when you get used to it, you know,
that's
it's
fair.
just kind of like,
I mean,
you then have that hunger for it, and that's from God too. So, and you crave that intimacy. And it's, you know, I feel like it's less lust, but more like just you crave that intimacy.
Like a true connection.
I feel like God was just kind of like with me through that whole season. And when I got pregnant with the twins, I started to be like really intentional about like listening to worship music and reading the word and praying. And there were a couple times when like Andrew wasn't quite there yet. But like when we would go through something stressful and I would like pray over the situation and we like immediately had like peace. In that situation, it really like started to strengthen our relationship more, like taking it from having fun and being reckless to like actually maturing in a relationship and like being, you know,
just like deepening your connection, really.
Even like if you have walked away from your faith, or maybe you're married to someone who doesn't have a strong faith but has the, you know, foundation of beliefs, or maybe doesn't even have that at all, and you want to start pursuing that relationship with God again, or like he does not walk away from you. He is still there. You can disobey and walk away and sin, and in his eyes, he still sees you the same way, redeemed through the blood of Jesus. Like we did nothing to earn that. Like he still loves you and sees. If you want to go back to that, like just do it, because you want to snuggle me? Aww. Come here. Do you want to be in this video? Okay.
Censored.
No, but what I will say is like if you want to, you know, get back in relationship with Jesus, like you will not regret it, and there's no shame that can hold you back from that.
But
it's
like
not
on
holding
God's
God
part,
back.
like.
But even if you have a partner who's like not there, by modeling it and by like, if the presence of God is in your home, like it's going to spread like a wildfire.
That's really powerful. The last topic is, how do I even talk about that? Okay, we're just going to talk about sex within marriage and how we prioritize that, how that like functions with everything else we have going on in our lives.
Intimacy
and
after
a perspective
kids too.
Oh, yes.
Because that is a whole other thing.
Growing up, like, I always thought, like, wow, sex must be this amazing, like, mysterious, like, awesome thing. And I really didn't even understand what it was until, like, 6 years ago. Okay. Fast forward, and I was, like, waiting for marriage, and then, like, I didn't do that in my relationship with Austin, then I felt like a terrible person. And same thing, like, I sort of was not in a good spot in my relationship with God, and I just was, like, kind of all over the place. Anyways, fast forward to when we got married, I always heard people in Christian culture say, oh, well, when you get married, you might like have like some residual like shame from like purity culture, like going into sex, and it might be like kind of difficult for you. And at first I like fooled myself, and I was like, oh, like I don't feel that way. Like I just like I love Austin and we're married, and I know that honors God. So I don't have a problem with that. But then I started to realize that obviously, like, it's for the glory of God, and it's also like to have fun. But I started to realize that I was not viewing it in a biblical way, if that makes sense. Like, I was kind of viewing it in like a worldly way of like, well, this hasn't happened, and what can you do for me? And like kind of like holding it over someone's head, and that's like so not healthy or biblical. And I feel like now it's like a give and take of like, yes, that's important, yes, that's awesome, but that's not the only way that like I can serve you and make you feel loved, and vice versa. And I feel like it's taken me 2.5 years to figure that out. So anyway,
I feel like, for instance, like, I feel like I can talk more about sex after kids than sex within marriage, because I feel like you probably have more to say on that, but
I don't know about that. Not really. That's all.
At least for me, like, after having kids, like, there are little people that need you, and like you're getting up in the middle of the night and you're tired, and like sometimes you're like touched out, and like that's just not like what you desire. That's not really what you want at that point. But I think that what you're talking about, like with the biblical, perspective, and like it's from God, and I think that sometimes it's hard for me to remember, like, oh, this is a way I can serve my husband, because like sometimes I'm like, oh, like I just want to go to bed, like I'm so tired. I take care of people all day, like I don't want to do this. I just want to, I do think that it would be nice if the church taught you like a little bit more about it. Like I didn't know, there were so many things I didn't know, hence why I accidentally got pregnant with Casey and why I accidentally got pregnant with the twins. Like I just wasn't educated on that, or like birth control. Like I just didn't know. And so, and honestly for me, like I always felt like it was, like I always knew it was a way to like please, your partner, but I never looked at it really as a way that I can get pleasure really pretty much ever. Like I just didn't experience that way until Andrew.
Just kidding. But I think that's important. And
it is. It's so
important. Not to say that at the same time. It's so important to have someone who can see it from a biblical lens, but also at the same time, not just, obviously we all are selfish at times, but not just value themselves, but value you both in the situation, and say like, how can I help you? What can I do for you? Instead of, oh, it's all about me. Yeah. Because that happens too. And that's like how people get so frustrated and stagnant in relationships.
And the other thing that has a huge, huge role, and that is porn culture. Because, like,
we're going there.
Yes, but, like, it warps your idea of sex. So, like, when the church doesn't teach you...
That's all you know.
And when you... Even, like, okay, porn can be in a book. It can be on a website. It can be in a movie. Like, it is not just limited to Pornhub. It's just like cheating. Like, kissing someone can be cheating. You don't have to, like, have sex, or, like, you can have an emotional affair. Yeah. Same thing with porn. Like, there are levels to it. Following girls on Instagram with, like, bikinis, that that is a level of porn.
Yeah,
like,
it is.
When you are objectifying, when
you get on Instagram and you scroll and that's all you see, like, that's not going to be building up your relationship.
Yeah, but I think that too has influenced, like, my view of sex, because, like, I saw these movies where it was portrayed this way, so I felt like that's how it had to be for it to be meaningful, but that's not at all, that's not real.
100%.
I think that it's really amazing when you get to the core of why you have sex. Like, right, we have sex so we can have kids. right?
Right.
Essentially, but also for intimacy and connection with your partner.
Right.
Like, I would argue to say that is so much more important than just the fleeting feeling that it gives you in that time, which is why I think our culture is just so hungry for more and more and more, because they're not satisfied. They're not experiencing true intimacy and closeness. That's why there's Tinder and all this stuff. Like, you can talk to, I don't know, 15 people in
like
one
you can
night.
just download any app and like bam, you're talking to someone. Or, and not to say that's bad because I know people get married from that, but there's like hookup apps. There's like, there's all kind, I mean, there's weird like websites and like all kinds of crazy stuff that it's just like so easily accessible, like it's instant gratification, and it makes you think, in my opinion, from a guy's perspective, it makes them think, oh, well, in my marriage, because we're married, because that honors God, there's going to be constant instant gratification, and it's just like, that's not sustainable as a partner.
And like, if that is how your sex life looks, like, that's fine, like,
great,
to happen all the time, like, good for you. But, like, for me at least, I always felt like with Andrew specifically, the only way I reached that intimacy and closeness with him is because I felt safe with him.
Correct.
And I felt like he honors me and like dedicating himself to not watching porn in our marriage. So I feel safe because of that. And the moment that I feel like, oh my gosh, like, are you struggling with this? And we have open conversations, which like, I'm not going to speak for him because like, that's his story. When we are open and honest and vulnerable about that, and when I feel safe with him, that is when our intimacy like goes deeper. Yeah. We have a lot of success, if you know what I mean.
Success? I totally agree with that, and I think I'm a part of this group from the Christian college that we went to, and more frequently these days, and I'm a part of a Christian podcast group on Facebook, and more frequently, I am seeing posts almost every single day from women who are like, I had no idea that my husband was struggling with X, Y, or Z for years, and he hid it from me on this level or that level or whatever, and they're like, I don't know what to do because no one talks about it. Pretty much everyone struggles with it. I was so naive in high school. I thought that like my boyfriend was like so pure and that he had never like looked at anything. He was just like a noble man of God, and like that may have been true at that point, but like I feel like at some point in a man's life they will struggle to an extent.
And that's very normal, and that like to struggle with that as a guy. Right. But I think that the problem is not in the struggle. The problem is like when they say there's nothing wrong with it, or they don't want to stop, or they don't seek help or mentorship or like a group. And I think that as long as your partner is actively moving towards a healthy
accountability.
I have to remind myself the heart is what's important. Just like me, like I'm gonna stumble and sin in my own ways. And so like as long as, you know, we are open and our hearts are in the right place and, you know, we're actively like trying to honor God, I feel like that is when it's successful.
And I feel like, although it is a hard conversation to have, I feel like it's really powerful, really vulnerable, and it makes the man, obviously, like, yes, they should be accountable, like, for their actions, but it makes him feel safe to be like, okay, I have this addiction, and now I finally feel like there's a weight off my shoulders to where I can actually talk to my wife about it. I mean, probably not fully, but
I will say, I believe you as a wife should not be the one holding him accountable.
I agree with that.
I think that that should be like a mentor or like a close friend or whatnot, because it can get toxic if you are the one holding them accountable. So.
I 100% agree with that, because there have been people in our lives before that have said like, like, what about Gabrielle? Like, does she? I'm like, no, it's not my duty or responsibility, but I know everybody's different as far as what they want to know, but I do want to know a certain level, because like you're saying, when you go to be close with that person, it's like,
well,
am I safe?
I think it's like, good to have check-ins, but not be the one to monitor it. So.
Yeah, no, because you will literally drive yourself crazy.
Yeah.
And I have done that. And I think it's important to, like you said earlier, know that your spouse is like finding accountability, finding a mentor, and moving in that direction. Although they may slip up, at least they're moving in the right direction and honoring your marriage at the end of the day.
And the other thing too is like, you don't want to focus on someone else's sin. You want to focus on your own.
Right.
Because when you are edifying yourself, like, that is going to be, you know, just like, it's going to carry into your marriage.
Right.
And so like, if your partner is currently struggling with that, I think that like, that is their journey, not yours. And it's like that verse, you know, there's a, you know, log in my own eye.
Right.
I
need to look at that first
before I point out your sin and throw stones at you, like, I have sin in my life and I have friendships and accountability for my own things.
That's really good. I feel like we need
That's a hard topic to talk about because, like, number one, it can feel uncomfortable. Number two, it's not talked about enough.
No.
And number three, like, it's such a spectrum. Like, either someone thinks there's nothing wrong with like pornography or sex before marriage, or they're the complete opposite, you know, spectrum.
Right.
Like, we need people who are in the middle who are like, I've struggled with that, but this is where we want to be, but like, I am human.
100%, because when I was growing up, I mean, I asked for a purity ring when I turned 13. I feel like that's self-explanatory. All I would see were these people that were older than me giving their testimonies, either of like, how they totally like screwed up their lives and had, you know what I mean, sex a lot, or it was the complete opposite of like, I was holy and I waited until marriage and it was the best thing I ever did and God blessed me tenfold or whatever. And I felt like there was no one in the middle. And so when that happened to me, I was like, crap.
Yeah.
I messed up. I don't want to talk to anyone about this. I'm a bad person.
Well, the other thing that I want to say is like, a lot of times this specific sin, either porn or sex before marriage, is easily hideable. Like, you, and unless you're like me and you get pregnant, mine is just like, sex before marriage, divorce. Like, it's just like a billboard. No, but I think that is what like humbled me.
My God.
Because like, you can just see like such blessings. I'm so thankful that, you know, I had those said consequences, because they are just, you know, I love my babies. But I think that like the really bad thing is when you are secretly living in sin, that will eat at you, and it's like a disease in your body. So
I totally agree with you, because that's how I felt. I felt ill a lot. And you honestly become like, you're like, for me at least, like I felt like I was living a double life. Like, I was having sex on a Saturday and then the next day I was leading worship. And I was up there, and I think I've said this in another video, but like, I was crying and everyone probably thought like, oh, she's like so moved by the Holy Spirit. But I was like, actually, I just feel completely unworthy and terrible and guilty because I just did that yesterday. And why do I keep doing that, and why can't I stop?
Well, the church needs to, I think, maybe alter like you need to be able to feel safe bringing that to someone and like seeking help if you're going through any sort of sin, and not feel like the pastors and the staff are like up here and you're like the scum of the earth, because like, that is not how God sees you. And God still wants to use you even through your sin, even when you're sinning. Like, think about like, God will literally, like, he used a donkey. Like, he will use you through worship, through serving, even if you're struggling with sin. And the church, I wish that they wouldn't just kick people off of like serving God. Like, you're not serving the church, like that organization.
You hear that?
You are serving God, and that is the best place to be if you're struggling with sin. So,
and it's crazy because, I mean, obviously there is like a standard of godly living, right? But like, they'll use that and they'll like twist it to be like, well, you're not living up to our standard, our standard.
Well, no one knows
we're gonna kick you
your
off.
heart except for God.
Right.
And so, like, I do think, yes, if you're actively living in sin, not trying to change,
That's different.
then that's different. And I guess leadership should use that to their discretion.
Right.
But
if
you know,
you're
you
like,
want to see the people on the platform subscribing to the belief system that they're portraying to,
right.
you know.
As long as there's, like, in my opinion, genuine heart change and wanting accountability to say, like, I'm struggling with this, I need help, can you help me? I think that the stigma needs to be removed from that, because, I mean, that's literally what happened to me when I was fired. I was like, hey, I'm struggling. I didn't tell my friend, like, for funsies. I didn't need to tell her because all my other friends already knew.
Yeah.
I told her because I really wanted help.
Yeah.
And instead, you know, had to tell everyone and their mother, and then I got fired.
Yeah.
So that was really fun, and I feel like that's why I've said this. I'm gonna say this, like, beating a dead horse, is like, that's why people get so far into their ministry career and it's ruined, because they did not feel safe to
that
confess.
sin was killing them from the inside.
And people were like,
yeah.
oh, confess your sins and you'll be forgiven. Okay, yes, by God, but it's such a double standard, like, when it comes to actual humans. Like, do you really forgive me, or do you see me completely different?
I think that pride is a big part of that. Like, you have pride in your, like, ministry position, or, like, God has ordained you to do through worship or whatever it is. And that is, it's either pride or it's shame. So, like, I stepped down after I became pregnant with the twins out of shame, like, oh my gosh, you know, but my story is so beautiful, and God has been there all along the way, and like, I'm very fortunate, but I did have that level of shame. I think on the opposite spectrum, it can be pride, like pride in yourself that causes that sin to fester inside, because you're proud of your talent and, you know, all this stuff.
That's good. Really
or
good.
You're proud of how many people come to your church if you're a pastor, and like that is God doing that, not you. You can be replaced in a second, but God wants to use you, not for your own elevation, but for the elevation of God. And I think that the same thing with shame, like, it's not about you, it's about God. And I think it's actually really beautiful when people are used by God that have a story that is anything but perfect. It's just a testimony.
I agree with you, because we're all very messed up and we all need the same forgiveness. Also, my foot is numb,
and
my leg hurts, and I don't feel good, and I have to pee. I love you guys so much. Thanks for watching this. Sorry. Oh my God. Such your butt.
It's okay.
Sorry if this was too spicy for you. I'm just kidding.
Or honestly, if we have bad perspectives on this, like,
let me know in the comments.
Yeah, because, like, we're coachable.
Yes.
We're still learning, like, our word is not law, so.
Yeah, no, I'm not God.
And everyone has their own opinions, and I try to just remind myself, like, all of us are growing and learning, and God is teaching us different things at different points in our life, so.
Right, I agree with that.
But sometimes it's good to just hear someone else's perspective, so.
Yes, so I hope you guys enjoyed this girl chat that got very deep and spicy. And I love you so much. And comment below if you have any advice or thoughts or questions. And I will see you in my next video. Bye.
Bye.